Hello, and welcome to the Environmental Sciences Research Opportunities webinar hosted by the Army HBCU-MI Student Program for Army Research and Knowledge, or as we like to call it, SPARK. Today's webinar aims to provide valuable insights into how researchers and universities can align their work with Army priorities and engage directly with ARL program managers to discuss innovative research ideas. Today's speakers include Dr. Liz King-Doonan, Dr. Matthew Glasscott, and Dr. Josh Buscelli from the DEVCOM ARL Army Research Office. Our speakers will provide information for roughly 30 to 40 minutes, and then we will open the floor to any questions you may have. My name is Crystal Nolan, and before we turn the presentation over to our Army speakers, I'd like to discuss the webinar format for a few moments. We ask that you keep your microphone muted during the presentation today, but during the Q&A session, we'll invite you to open your mic to ask questions. You can also use the chat feature to ask questions at any time, and we will capture your questions for the speakers to answer. We'll capture your questions for the speakers to answer during the Q&A session at the appointed time. Now, if you have any questions about the Zoom platform for this event, please feel free to enter them in the chat window now. Technical support is on hand to help you with any issues you may be having. And with that, I'll turn it over to our DEVCOM ARL Army Research Office speakers.
Wonderful. Thank you, Crystal, and thank you, Jean, for organizing this. And hi, everyone. We are excited to talk to you all today. I am going to go ahead and share my screen and show you some slides where we provide a brief introduction to our programs here at the Army Research Office, and then an overview of how you can understand how ARL and the Army Research Office is organized, and then some best practices for submitting white papers and interacting with program managers. It sounds like we might have a hot mic somewhere, so if everyone can make sure they're muted.
Okay, it looks like everything is quiet now.
Perfect.
Dr. Doonan,
Can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay, let's put this into full mode. And we can go ahead and get started. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Liz King-Doonan, and I manage the Environmental Chemistry Program here at the Army Research Office. And I am joined by my colleagues, Dr. Josh Buscelli and Matthew Glasscott, and we today are going to talk about funding opportunities within our programs and within the Army Research Lab more broadly. I see a lot of familiar names on the attendee list right now, so I am excited to meet everyone new and old. So let's get started. It looks like my computer is frozen. Here we go. Okay. Did everyone see me advance my slide? Okay,
yeah.
good. All right. Well, so As a brief introduction, I'm the program manager for the Environmental Chemistry Program, and I have my program information, my contact information, and also the topic ID where you can find my full program description within our broad agency announcement listed on this slide. So overall, the vision for my program is really focused on determining the transport and transformation of chemical and biological compounds of interest to enable unprecedented sensing, prediction, manipulation, and mitigation strategies for the future warfighter. So, as you'll see in our broad agency announcement, I tend to invest in three main topic areas to achieve these goals. First, I invest in research projects that are related to reaction pathways and kinetics. Think about enabling precise control of biogeochemical reactions and elucidating how bottom up processes are able to impact environments at scale. The next focus area that I invest in is environmental forensics. This is where I focus on projects that are integrating computational methodologies for robust predictions of complex systems, and also investing in more high risk projects where we are potentially developing new chemical or biological fingerprints that help us to understand the history of a particular environmental reservoir or source tracking and partitioning. The final area that I invest in is environmental security. And so this is where there are projects that characterize how extreme climate or weather events are altering these biogeochemical pathways, particularly in environments that would be relevant for Army operations or at Army relevant scales. So shorter scales than what we would typically see geologically or even those climate scales. And so I know that these topic areas tend to be pretty broad. We intentionally keep these program descriptions open-ended so we can solicit unique, high-risk, novel ideas. And so you'll see this time and again throughout this presentation, but we really encourage you to talk to us during that idea curation stage to get a better sense of program priorities as it pertains to your research. And so, with that, I will pass it over to Josh so he can provide an introduction to his program and then to Matt Glasscott.
Hey, everybody. My name is Josh Boschelli. As was indicated, I am the PM for the Earth Materials Processes program. It's a rather broad program where basically I'm really focusing on the physical and mechanical properties of earth materials and the processes involved with them. And very similar to Liz, very open-ended, interested to hear new ideas and concepts of how we can really progress basic science research. My program specifically focuses on material properties, so anything where we have earth material or something that's being formed, how that we can take those properties and really use them to capture advantageous properties. I also look into environmental characterization, so this could be anything from how certain environments or processes are able to weather natural disasters or big events, or even just how water erodes rocks. Some very broad classification there. And then since earth science is this field that is always changing, has dramatic changes over time, I like to really target fundamental gaps. So I try to encourage people, if you have some crazy idea that is earth related, please contact me because I would love to hear it and see if I can find a place in my program. So for the majority of the time, I'm trying to focus on big picture ideas and then finding where I can help mold those into what the Army potentially could be interested into. And as you can kind of tell, I'm kind of the middle point between Liz's domain and Matt's domain. So I try to encompass a lot of topics and a wide range of ideas. With that, I'll hand off to Matt.
Sure, thanks. Can everyone hear me? Excellent. Hey, it's good to be here today. Thanks to Liz and Josh for being here to kind of tell you a little bit about the Army Research Office. And kudos to those of you who showed up early. This meeting has reached capacity, evidently, at 100 attendees. And so the lucky folks in here are going to get the inside scoop and get to know our programs a little better. So yeah, really excited to see 100 people here. I think that's really important because, you know, Josh and Liz and I, we are working for the Army. So all the research that we do, even at this fundamental level, is really geared towards a specific mission. And that mission is protecting the warfighter and helping the warfighter project power. So everything we do is very missionally driven, and we like to be able to, in our research programs, bring everything back to how the research benefits the warfighter in the long term. So with that in mind, I run a pretty direct to warfighter program in terms of the application space, and that's electrochemistry. So electrochemistry is a science, of course, that undergirds battery technologies, fuel technologies, and a lot of new emerging technologies that we think are going to be pretty powerful for the warfighter of 2050 and beyond. And so specifically, I'll just read the vision just because I think it's important. It's to understand and control the physics and the chemistry. There's a big physico-chemical kind of collaboration in the program that govern electrochemical redox reactions and the transport of ionic species and how those are coupled to electrodes, catalysis, electrolytes, and interfaces. So in my program, very much like Josh and Liz, I break that into three main missions. The first is energy conversion, and that's essentially how does a molecule interact with a polarized surface, a surface with charge on it, and how does that molecule react to become something new? The fundamentals of those processes are what are driving fuel cell technologies across the DoD and the civilian space. We have energy storage. So in this case, we're looking at how does an ion move through a charged media? How does an electrolyte transport from, for instance, one electrode to another, from a cathode into an anode compartment, et cetera. So the fundamentals of those transport properties are really driving the development of new battery technologies that are going to support the warfighter. And then finally, this is a rather new one, but the Army actually, specifically within the DoD, is tasked with understanding biomanufacturing, or this process called synthetic biology, which many of you are probably familiar with, leveraging biology to generate materials and other species that the Army is interested in at the point of need or without, kind of reduced thermal signature and other benefits. So bioelectrochemistry is a part of the program we're building out to actually interface microbial species, enzymatic species with electrode surfaces to provide the electron feedstock, essentially, that one might provide otherwise chemically directly to the catalytic site so that we can drive some of these synthetic biological processes. And so that's kind of the program in a nutshell. But we work across, as Josh was mentioning, a really broad range of questions. And if it's fundamental and it has to do with an ion or an electron moving, then we're probably interested in it here at the electrochemistry program. Thank you.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Go on, Dr. King Doonan, please.
Okay, I have a few slides that I'm happy to go through that kind of level set and provide some fundamental information on the Army Research Office. So I might just do that and then jump into questions. Does that work?
Absolutely, it does.
Awesome. Okay, it's still in this. You can still see my slides and everything?
Yes.
Okay, we're used to Microsoft Teams here, so I can't see
Mhm.
what screen you guys are looking at. Okay, so thanks, Josh and Matt, for those introductions. And I also wanted to highlight a few other areas here. Let's see if I can get the laser pointer. So these are some other programs within ARL's broad agency announcement that also tend to fund projects that may be relevant for the environmental sciences. So I would encourage everyone to check out those additional topic IDs, and we will be sharing these slides after this meeting. So don't feel like you need to write them all down now. Okay, so I wanted to spend 10 minutes talking about what is the Army Research Lab, how is specifically the Army Research Office organized, and how can a prospective PI engage with the Army Research Office? So, the Army Research Office is a component of the Army Research Laboratory, or ARL. So, ARO specifically focuses on that basic scientific research by investing in the extramural research community. And so, this community can include institutions of higher education, small businesses, and also the international research community. And so there are five principles to ARO's mission that actually Matt Glascott touched upon today during his program description. First, we want to create and direct scientific discoveries for new Army capabilities. Then we want to drive that science that develops solutions to existing Army needs. We want to accelerate the transition of that basic research so to overcome that well known valley of death between basic and more applied science. And then we also want to educate and train the future Army scientific workforce. And ultimately, we want to create technological superiority for US forces and prevent technological surprise. And we do this all within the context of our greater Army Research Laboratory mission, which is to operationalize science. So, to realize our mission, most of our focus is on the academic research community, where scientists, like you all, often use a diversity of approaches that may lead to even more scientific discovery. And not only does this approach open new doors for the Army Research Office scientifically, but academic research also enables the training of the next generation of Army scientists and engineers, forward thinkers who can be supported and support can be supported by, I guess, and support the Army. And so, because program managers like Matt, Josh, and I are matter experts, we can act as liaisons between the Army and those academic communities. And so, what this often means is that we can translate between the future technology needs of the Army and the scientific breakthroughs of academia, thereby creating partnerships that may not have been possible if those two communities remain siloed. So, a great example of this can be shown on the left here. So the 11 different boxes that I have listed on this slide describe the priority competency interests of the Army Research Lab. And while these topics may seem applied, each of them are comprised of fundamental research from a variety of different fields. And so it's up to us as Army Research Office program managers to identify and communicate the research needed to support those priorities. And also, because program managers are subject matter experts who have funding authority, it means that we can fund the most cutting edge science that may otherwise be unexplored due to its high risk nature. So this is really the key to enabling those revolutionary new capabilities that we've talked about in each of our respective programs. An important note here that I have in this bubble is that there is a full understanding that this research is truly fundamental. So we're thinking of potential capabilities 20, 30, or 40 years down the road. We're not necessarily thinking about prototype development within the next 3 to 5 years. And so next, I wanted to spend a couple of minutes talking about how ARO is organized, specifically the different programs that comprise ARO. So there are 42 different scientific programs within ARO, and those programs are organized into 11 branches that match the competencies that I mentioned on this previous slide. So competencies range from biological and biotechnology sciences, where my program sits, to mechanical sciences, where Josh's program sits, all the way over to, where are you, Matt? Energy sciences, where electrochemistry sits. And so, even though you may see a program organized into one competency when you look at our broad agency announcement, the idea is that fundamental research is wide ranging, which means that many programs tend to invest in research that supports all sorts of competencies. So, take my program, for example. As I said, I'm part of the biological and biotechnology sciences competency, but I invest in research and work with Army scientists across the full spectrum of these different applications. And so, what this means for PIs is don't be afraid to pitch out of the box ideas. Each program tends to invest in science that is relevant to a range of these different competencies. So, to invest in cutting edge research, ARO programs use several broad agency announcements, all of which can be found on our website. I went through and I bolded some of the most relevant awards for this presentation today. Um, but again, most of these can be found within our broad agency announcements. So let's focus on this top award, the Single Investigator Program. This is the main type of grant award that prospective PIs can apply to. There tends to be 1 to 2 PIs per proposal, and our awards are usually $150,000 per year for 3 years. We also have what is called the Short Term Innovative Research Program. This is more appropriate if someone has a very out of the box, high risk idea that requires some preliminary evidence before being developed into a full proposals. These STIRs tend to be awarded for $60,000 for 9 months, and they really require a very rapid turnaround. But I personally really like funding STIRs to probe some new scientific directions that I could eventually take my program in the future. We also have our Early Career Awards. This is set aside for PIs within 5 years of starting a tenure track position. This program specifically varies from agency to agency when we think about the other tri-services and even internal to ARO. So I really recommend reaching out to a PM to learn more about how they interact with those early career awards within their program. And so, lastly, we also fund conferences, workshops, and symposia that synthesize the current state of science. So, much like STIRS, I like to fund a few of these a year to help maintain cognizance of the state of the art in my field. So, if you all have any ideas for conferences, workshops, or symposia, we are always all ears to hear about those new ideas. And then, of course, we invest in HBCUs and MIs through our primary broad agency announcement, but we also have annual opportunities that are administered on behalf of other agencies like OSD. These include equipment. Um, or awards to improve equipment or education infrastructure, and also basic research funding opportunities as well. And so all of those HBCU-MI opportunities can be found on our website within our broad agency announcement section as well. And so finally, I think that probably most of the question and answer period will be focused on some of these discussions on how a prospective PI can engage with ARO. So I will just quickly go through a few of these slides. So first, as I've mentioned a couple times, we really encourage you to review the broad agency announcements and other opportunities on our website. This website will provide all of the details of the procedure for each specific solicitation. So our broad agency announcement can be found at this website. Again, these slides are going to be shared with you, and it's under the Collaborate with Us tab within that website. Our broad agency announcement can also be found on grants.gov following the solicitation number that I don't have listed, but is pretty easy to find on our website. Within our website, you'll be able to filter the current ARO disciplines that are open for funding opportunities, and you'll be able to find the contact information for the appropriate program manager that you want to reach out to. So once you identify a program, it's time to start the idea curation process. I will say program managers may have different processes for how they like to handle idea curation. So it's a good idea to reach out and send an introduction. What I found is that many program managers, including myself, will ask for a research menu, which is a couple of pages with 2 to 3 high risk ideas that you're interested in pursuing. So a program manager can review those quickly or share them with other PMs, like I could share it with Josh or Matt, and see who may have interest in a specific topic. And if a topic strikes a chord with a program manager, they may ask for a white paper, and you may have an opportunity to have follow-up discussions about this topic. So in those discussions, the program manager may encourage you to submit a proposal. Full instructions for proposal preparation can be found in our broad agency announcement. Those proposals are submitted through grants.gov, and us PMs have proposals evaluated by both the academic and the Army or DoD community. So once those proposals are evaluated, the PM also has the opportunity to then review the proposal and those evaluations together and make a final funding recommendation based on other items such as program fit, potential for discovery, and or potential for transition. And so finally, if your proposal is selected for funding, you can expect regular engagement with your program manager about your research. This can occur through site visits, by attending the same conference, other collaboration building opportunities, and formal reporting. So all of these really help to broker that relationship with the internal Army community. And so before I wrap up, I wanted to leave you with some of the questions that I encourage you to think about as you develop your idea into a topic appropriate for ARO. Is it basic research? Is it hard? Why you? Why now? So what? What impact will that research really make on the scientific community? Importantly, where's the risk? And finally, what will it take? What resources are required to pursue this research? These aren't necessarily required as you develop your idea, but it is something that us program managers think about as we review these new ideas. And so here are some other tips and tricks that are always helpful to think about as you start that idea curation process. So for ARO, always lead with the science. As we've talked about, we are really focused on that fundamental basic research, and that's really what we want to hear the most about. I think also don't tell the Army how to solve its problems. Instead, offering enabling research that could help the Army implement solutions is usually a better way to really find that engagement with your Army program manager, ARO program manager. If you don't get a response from us, please don't be afraid to send another email. We receive a lot of emails every week, and we do try to stay on top of things. But of course, responses may fall through the cracks. So please don't be afraid to send another email. We are very excited to talk to you about science. It's one of the best parts of our jobs. And then lastly, I'll just end here. We are always looking for reviewers. So if you want to get more insight into what a successful ARO proposal looks like and to think about how you want to formulate your idea, I think it's always a good experience to review proposals and better understand what the state of science is in your community so that you can help us make those final funding decisions. So with that, I think I've taken up most of my 10 minutes, and hopefully that was helpful. And I am happy to take questions with Josh and Matt.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm going to step in just for a brief few moments. And I want to thank you, Dr. Liz King-Doonan, Dr. Josh Buscelli, and Dr. Matthew Glascott. What insightful presentations and information you have presented here today. And I do want to thank you for that. So just as Dr. Liz says, we're going to start taking questions. We're going to open the floor to questions. For those who are in attendance, please feel free to open your microphone to direct questions to the speaker of your choice. Or you also have the option of entering your question in the chat area, and then I will read that for you if you prefer. So let's see, who would like to ask the first question?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Hey, good afternoon. This is Peng He. I'm calling from North Carolina A&T State University. Yeah, we are the HBCU. So right now I have questions. So I saw the website. I got the one HBCU-MI opportunity, which is the W911 F2 4S0009. I talked to I'm working with one of the program manager you listed, the polymer chemistry. Yeah, Dr. Lambes. And when I talked to him, and he's not sure his program can accommodate this HBCU-MI opportunity. So then I emailed to the person. She is Kathleen Kent, about, because I'm doing materials and bioanalytical chemistry. However, I just want to know how the HBCU opportunity fit in the regular program, like the chemistry or something. I must align with both people, like a program manager and the SPOC of this specific IFP.
I think this might be a great question for Janine Owens. Is Janine online? She's our HBCU-MI program manager.
Yes, I'm here, Liz. Thanks. So any of the REP grant opportunities do have to go through Miss Evelyn Kent's office. So she usually answers the email. So if you have not received an email from her, you can try to send it to her again. Outside of that, if you do want to try to send it to me, I can try as well. But that does all of the REP broad agency announcements go through Miss Kent.
Yeah, I did send on the last Monday, which is 21st. Then no response. I follow up another email this past Tuesday, 29th. So because Dr. Lambeth in the polymer chemistry program wanted me to confirm with Miss Kent first, then I will send my white paper to the system. So yeah.
So I can also connect with Dr. Lambert and follow up to make sure we at least send it to the rep team.
Okay. So can you share your email? Maybe I can forward that email to you, then you can align with both people. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that is my question. Thank you so much. Yeah.
That was a great question. Who's going to ask the next question?
Go ahead, Sanju. Hi, my name is Sanju Sanjaya. I'm Director of Energy and Environmental Science Institute in West Virginia State University. First of all, I would like to thank you everybody for organizing this sort of webinar. It is very, very helpful, especially for people working in smaller universities. So most of the time, when I look at grant opportunities in DOD, mostly they are like, focused towards engineering or aircrafts. And a lot of the things, many HBCUs, including ours, we do not have a capability to contribute in terms of research. Of course, we have a value in contributing in STEM workforce development. But at the same time, I would like to see some kind of, more involvement of HBCUs in what DOD is doing, because HBCUs are minority schools are well positioned to do the research and also train the next generation of, workforce for Department of Defense. By saying this, many minority schools or HBCUs, we are strong in biological programs, or we are strong in agriculture programs, for example, working on plants, addressing some of the issues concerned to food, environment, water pollution, and so on. I want to see, more involvement of HBCU faculties in the research. Not just I have seen, when they need to do something, they will just send out some information. Hey, send students. We have internship. We have some for students coming from HBCU. That is good, but at the same time, I would like to see more opportunity for PIs working in HBCU or minorities, universities to take some of those challenging tasks to help our defense, especially more opportunities in the biological field. Thank you very much. Back to you, Crystal.
Could I address that question really quick? Would that be okay, Crystal?
Absolutely. Yes.
Sanju, thank you so much. It's a great question, and I want to use the opportunity to bring it back to something Liz said, which is really important and probably the number one point of disconnect that I have when I communicate with folks in academia. And that's, Liz said this quite well. It's don't tell the Army how to solve its problems. Give us an opportunity or path for research that could help solve a myriad of problems. And so the kind of application of that, of what that means, is we're not applied scientists here at ARO. We're fundamentally driven people looking for new science that's going to inform many different disciplines. So I'm not looking for the next best battery. I'm not looking for the next best fuel cell. I'm looking for the fundamental principles that drive those technologies. And so when people contact us, they should be aware of that we're not really looking for your device per se. We're looking for the new knowledge that's going to drive the development of new devices. Now, not to say that the application space isn't important. That's actually why, and I'm going to wrap back to the answer for your question for this. That's why we work really closely at ARO with what we call ARD, or the Army Research Directorate, but it's also kind of broadly known as the Army Research Laboratory, as well as what we call these DEVCOM centers, places like the Ground Vehicle Systems Center or the Soldier Center. Those are the kind of research institutions within the Army that do look for your solutions to Army problems and solicit those solutions through things like SBIRS TTR and also through direct collaboration. So the beauty of kind of the innovation pipeline that Liz, Josh, and I get to work with is we're at the very base level. I mean, you walk in the door and we're right there. And we get the opportunity to fund research and knowledge that then starts moving up the TRL ladder and eventually will become technologies that go off to the Army Research Lab at the basic applied research stages, and then to some of these DEVCOM research centers when we start talking about device fabrication and actual solution deployment. So I think it's a great question. The Army can work with you, and we do work with HBCUs at all stages of that innovation pipeline. ARO specifically, though, it is important that we do start at that fundamental level. And we're happy to connect you with the applied folks if that's of interest as well. Over.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. I see that Sanka, and excuse me if I've mispronounced your name, has his hand up. Please ask your question.
Thank you, Crystal. I'm Shankar Banerjee from California State University of Fresno, which is an HSI. So I had a two-part question. So my first question is, if we are trying to work with private companies, especially, I am trained in plasma engineering and plasma physics, but my home department is mechanical engineering. So we are trying to work with a few private companies, especially in two different domains. One in professional development and workforce training, and also developing R&D products, which can eventually lead to new research programs and doctoral programs in the university. So how do we go about, how do we go about getting for funding? If we are working with private companies, what kind of things do we need to keep in mind? So thank you.
Josh or Matt, did you want to take this, or I'm happy to take this?
Please go ahead.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's a great question. One area that you could look into funding opportunities would be the STTR program, which is, I should have remembered what the acronym stood for. It's a small business program where you can work with small businesses and partner with a university. So you would be that university partner. Those STTR programs are more focused on a focused topic. So those broad agency announcements, or FOAs, come out on a pretty regular basis, but they're going to be focused on a pretty they're going to be focused on a pretty specific topic. So I would say that that could be a good opportunity for you to really strengthen those partnerships with the companies that you're working with. And the other option, there are opportunities depending on what your basic scientific research question is to incorporate businesses within some sort of agreement, whether it be a subcontract with your grant agreement. I hope I'm not misspeaking here, but I'm pretty sure that that is something that is that's that is you're able to do. Sorry, and I think that's the limitation there typically comes from the cost of things like overhead, that would really limit the amount of funding that you're able to put towards research versus other indirect costs. And so that's really where those limitations come. But there are opportunities, and it is more of a case by case basis. So, yeah, I would recommend reaching out to either the program manager that you're interested in to see if they have specific recommendations, or again, checking out the STTR program, which is part of the Small Business Innovative Research program. So, SBIR, STTR.
Thank you for that. I see that Nick has his hand raised. Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. This is Nick Moore. I'm UC Merced in the Environmental Systems Department. And this one's more for Josh. Just in terms of the extreme weather events, can you maybe give a few examples or just a project that you're kind of working on just to see if it would kind of tie into some of the work that we're doing here?
Sure. So for extreme weather events, I'm typically focusing on anything that has to do with the cryosphere, or with that's how the world is constantly evolving, or areas where we're going to see devastation due to hurricanes or anything like that. So if there's an event that causes a large amount of infrastructure damage that could be pertinent to the DoD, or really common life, is research that I'm currently focusing in on. Some of the projects I'm currently sponsoring are focusing a lot on the cryosphere, about how ice is constantly melting or how it's deforming over time, and also looking into modeling weather events, so we can get a better understanding and prediction of where and how hard certain storms will hit.
Oh, thanks.
Fantastic questions. Let's see who's going to ask the next question. Lots of people in the room.
I don't know how to raise my hand, but I like to ask a question, if I may.
Absolutely, sure.
Yeah, I'm Jorge Lopez from the University of Texas at El Paso. And my question is, what would be the involvement if to propose a research? Does it have to be in collaboration with somebody at there at the Army Research Lab, or is it going to be totally independent?
I can speak to that really quickly. Good to hear from you. Yeah, it's a good question. A lot of folks assume you really need a direct collaboration with some sort of DoD entity. That's not true from our granting perspective. Liz talked about the different types of grants that we offer, single investigator, et cetera. And those are, us investing in the fundamental science community that's going to eventually, publish papers, for instance, that are going to inform some of our Army research priorities. I will say, though, we do have the opportunity to do these things called collaborative agreements, where you would work directly with, for instance, the Army Research Laboratory. I have a agreement being set up right now between Coppin State, which is an HBCU in Baltimore, and our Army Research Lab. One of the benefits that they're really deriving from the partnership is that Coppin doesn't have some of the testing infrastructure they want in order to carry out the dream, the research that the PI has. And so they're going to be able to, through this cooperative agreement, send students and have the PI himself come down to the Army Research Lab in Adelphi, Maryland, leverage some of the infrastructure that we have as a DoD lab, and carry out the research in that way. Co-publications are an option there, and it can be a great way to just plug in and make sure that what you learn is directly transitioned to the Army as well. So we really like those cooperative agreements. Sometimes it's driven by, we see an opportunity with what you're proposing and folks that we know in the DoD S&T community and some direct overlap there. Even better, if you know people in the DoD S&T community and can come to us and say, hey, I'd like to work with this person collaboratively. We've had some conversations about this. How could we make something like that happen? So those are really good opportunities that, yeah, not necessary, but certainly a bonus to ensure the transition pathway is more direct. Over.
And I'll just hop in. That's a great answer, Matt. And also, once a proposal or a project is awarded, we often have opportunities for grantees to either present research at annual reviews or during other seminars that we organize throughout the year. And those are really great opportunities for you all to present your fundamental research and potentially grow a collaboration during the process or during the lifetime of your award. So we really are using the grant process to start to grow that network itself throughout the timeline of your grant.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I see that Abu Bakar has a raised hand. Please ask your question.
Thank you. This is Abu Bakar Mansari from North Carolina A&T State University. So my question is, if my idea has an international component, is it possible for me to apply funding to you guys here, and then my collaborator maybe apply to your colleagues in the national office?
I can take this one. Yeah, so we have an international program office within the Army Research Laboratory, and we also have the capability of funding international research grants through our own program. So
Okay.
for more of our traditional programs, I should say, so things like our single investigator program or our short-term innovative research program, we are able to fund internationally. You will see that some of our more special opportunities, such as our multidisciplinary university research initiative program or our MURI program, those are limited to domestic or US-based research institutions. But for the majority of our funding mechanisms, those can be funded to international universities.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if I may squeeze in this question quickly, when you were presenting the early career component, spoke about tenure track. What about non-tenure track faculty? Are they also really qualified to be early career applicants?
I'm sorry, I missed part of your question.
When you were presenting in your one of your the things you spoke about was the early career grant, and you said this is more for faculty that are early in their tenure track. So I'm asking, what about non-tenure track who are also early career?
So specifically for that ECP, the early career program, there are eligibility requirements for that, and it's being within 5 years of a tenure track position.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful question. Thank you. I see that Stephen has a hand up.
Yes, thank you. And thanks very much for organizing this webinar. It's been tremendously informative. I'm at the University of Illinois in Chicago, and my question is about the cooperative or collaborative agreements that were just discussed. Is the mechanism for funding those and the proposals and so on the same as the other types of awards that you've discussed today? And is the financial dimension of those awards roughly the same as well? Thank you.
Matt, do you want to take that one? Yeah.
Sure, I can let Liz and Josh elaborate if they have any additional experience. The pathway by which we've done this Coppin Award with ARL has been exactly the same as a grant that you might apply for as a single investigator. The only addition being from the ARL side, they're providing a little bit of documentation that describes what the collaboration will look like from their end. So it's no additional work for the PI, and everything else looks pretty equivalent. That's been my experience. Be curious if Liz and Josh have others. Over.
Yeah, it's the same. What Matt said is correct. It's basically the same same grant process. It's actually a little more paperwork on our end to set it up as a cooperative agreement, but for you all, it's basically just as straightforward. And in terms of budget, you asked about budget, right, Stephen?
Yes, I did. Just whether the financial dimensions are roughly the same as those awards, or are they different, or can they be different, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I think they're typically the same as a typical grant award. One thing to be aware of is that we cannot fund another federal institution. So even though a cooperative agreement is an agreement where you may be collaborating or sharing knowledge products with um, a, a researcher at the Army Research Laboratory, we cannot dedicate additional funds to that federal researcher, and so the budget itself usually doesn't vary too much from a typical grant.
Great, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
That was a wonderful question. I see that Deepa, please excuse me for mispronouncing your name, has a question. Please go ahead with your question.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for organizing this great session. So I am Deepa Madan. I am an associate professor at University of Maryland, Baltimore County. And excuse me, I worked on rechargeable zinc-based batteries. And we are trying to understand why zinc-based batteries are always primary, and what is the root cause of the failure in terms of rechargeability, and how we can use some new additives to create this new knowledge that how to make them chargeable using the sustainable material. So do you think this one will work as a good proposal? And my other question is, what is the best way to contact the program managers to check that?
I'll take this one. Sounds electrochemistry. Love to hear it. Hi, Professor Madan. Feel free to send me an email. I think my contact info is on this in some respect. There it is. Look at that. And yeah, with a little description of the idea, this is exactly how the process works. Generally, I mean, if you just type in ARO electrochemistry into Google, the BAA topic that Liz and Josh also described pop up generally, and our email addresses are embedded on there as well. And generally, it just you reach out and it's kind of a cold email where, hey, I have this idea, this is my career status, and we start working with you to find synergy. And what I like to do too in my program is, if I don't have room in my program, there's a whole DoD research infrastructure. We have the Office of Naval Research, the Air Force Office of Scientific Research, as well as some other kind of OSD driven programs. And so we can try to help you find a home for your research too, if it doesn't necessarily fit in any of our specific programs. So yeah, I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. This is helpful.
Wonderful question. Thank you. And now I see that Zesu has his hand raised, and I probably mispronounced your name, but please go ahead with your question.
Thank you. It's actually very close. Yeah. This is Shisu Xiao. I'm an assistant professor from George Mason University in Northern Virginia, so very close to DC and very close to ARO. So we are a minority serving institute. So I work on robotics, especially the field of robotics, with a focus on like off-road autonomy and off-road mobility, which I'm pretty sure is of interest to the Army in general. So my question is regarding the eligibility of our partners. So we can propose as the minority serving institute to some of those HBCU-MI programs. But if we have a partner, like we have a co-PI or sub-awardee that we want to collaborate with, what is the rule that do they have to be also HBCU/MI or they don't have to be? Or do we have to or do we have to be the lead and other sub-awardees on the teams can be a HBCU-MI or not? Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
So Janine might want to jump in here. I believe that if you're applying to an HBCU-MI specific solicitation, there are going to be eligibility requirements outlined within that document. But if you're applying to our traditional broad agency announcement, then those eligibility requirements are different. You're not necessarily applying for HBCU-MI funds within a special solicitation. So those partners don't necessarily have to be also an HBCU-MI, but that will probably be different for things like the REP program or other HBCU-MI opportunities. Janine, are you still online? Do you want to jump in here?
I am, and yes, it depends on what is actually in the broad agency announcement. We do identify what the requirements are. So in some cases, for specific HBCU-MI awards, you do have to be the primary, and you can use other institutions that are not HBCU-MI. And then in some cases, all the parties have to be for HBCU-MI, but the ones we've had this past year, it was only the primary had to be HBCU-MI. But again, it's annotated in the BAA.
Gotcha. So it's case dependent. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Janine, before you hop off, I actually just saw a question in the chat about searching our website for a separate HBCU-MI program. Is there an active solicitation right now that folks should be aware of, or is this be prepared for when a solicitation is released?
Actually, right now, there is not a specific solicitation from the Army Research Office or Army Research Lab. We will have one for our Centers of Excellence that will come out for FY26. So we should have that out probably by the end of the year. There is, of course, you can always apply to the open BAA. And then there are some DoD opportunities. There is a BAA out for the HBCU-MI OSD program.
Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Yes. Dr. Doonan, is there anything else that you want to add to that? I see we have one other question.
No, I don't have anything else to add right now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I see we have one other question from, and this will probably be our last question, and then we'll have to start wrapping up. But Ganesh, please.
Yeah, I'm Ganesh Bora, Chief Research Officer of Fayetteville State University, which is close to ARO in Fort Liberty. And it's a general question coming out from the previous one that like the solicitation is there. When it comes out, we can apply. But if there is some, say, high risk white paper is coming out for any topic, like it may not be environmental or like that, where does it go? Last time when we talked, like it was Kent Evelyn, Miss Kent Evelyn said that we can send it to any branch in DoD, but ARO is the main place where we should send it. And does it go with any call or BAA or just send it to any of the program manager?
Are you referring to a white paper that is focused on a specific solicitation, or a white paper?
No, not anything, not specific to any solicitation.
So where do our white papers go?
Right.
So I'll let Josh and Matt jump in here too, but I asked for my white papers to be submitted in a pretty informal manner, just straight to my inbox. And I try to respond within don't hold me to this. I try to respond within 3 to 4 weeks. And so those white papers just come directly to me if it's relevant for my program, and I will review, provide feedback, set up a meeting, or I will share it with another program manager that I think that program may be a better fit. But specifically for our core broad agency announcements, those white papers come to us. That might be different for specific HBCU-MI announcements. It sounded like you were talking to Miss Evelyn Kent. I'm not sure if that was for a specific solicitation, but for our traditional core programs, they come directly to the program manager and they can just be dropped in our inbox. Matt or Josh, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I mean, I basically get them straight to the inbox and go from there. And just like Liz, will respond to it as quickly as I can. I mean, I probably in the past couple of weeks I've sent Liz about 3 white papers now that I thought were, applicable to both of us. So it's really, if you send it to one of the PMs, we have it directly. It doesn't go anywhere else.
Thank you.
Yeah, just add a little more it's fun to think, back in the day, you would have printed out a BAA or received a paper copy and had to go through every single document, every single program. I recommend that, go to the online PDFs of these BAAs, Control F, key topics for your program, and then use that as a kind of a mechanism to collect kind of the POCs, because one way to ensure that your research and your ideas get to the right person is to make sure they're directed to the right PM. But sometimes if you're just kind of firing from the hip, it can be precarious whether your information is getting to the right person or not. And then just to add to that really quick too, there's a lot of these times that white papers or even proposals, for instance, to the REP program are submitted, and it's a very competitive program, so they might be declined. And maybe some people on this call have had that experience. That doesn't mean that the research isn't of interest to the specific program managers at ARO. So do take those proposals and those ideas, update them for timeliness, and then continue to talk to us about them, especially because that REP program it kind of sits outside of our direct programs, what we call our core programs. We're really interested in working with you if the science is good. So I wanted to just put that out there as an encouragement to folks who have worked with the REP program and maybe are still looking for an opportunity. Over.
That's a great point, Matt. We have very limited budgets, even within our core traditional programs. So sometimes a project just isn't funded, not because it's not a great idea, but because we have insufficient funds available to fund even the best projects. So that's something to keep in mind if you're starting to get discouraged. We are very open to just continuing conversations and thinking about how you can home in on ideas for ARO.
Okay. Thank you all so much. That's all the time we have for questions today, but you should see the contact information for today's speakers on your screen so you can continue discussions after today's webinar. Now, we encourage you to take a photo of the contact information so you'll be sure to have it. While you're doing that, I'd like to remind you that the applications for the 2025 Army HBCU-MI Student Program for Army Research and Knowledge are currently open. If you have students who might be interested in a summer internship in an Army research facility, you can find more information at armyspark.com. That's ARMYSPARK.com. And that address is also on the screen right now. Again, I'd like to thank today's speakers, Dr. Liz King-Doonan, Dr. Matthew Glasscott, and Dr. Josh Buscelli from the DEVCOM ARL Army Research Office. And I'd also like to thank all of you for joining us today to learn about environmental sciences research opportunities within the Army. This concludes our presentation. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.